Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another mini series. This time we're going to be looking at geoboards, and you already watched the overview video, so you've learned a little bit about them and how they came about. So today's short session is just going to be sort of getting started with the geoboard. If you haven't really used them a lot, maybe some tips and tricks to think about. If you're introducing them to students of any age, but we're going to really focus too on what happens when I bring in a child, for example, in kindergarten or in grade 1 that isn't able to read or hasn't done a lot of instruction following yet, then how do we move them forward with this and still use it effectively for what we want? So we're going to look at building shapes on the geoboard itself and that comparative language that comes in at the younger grades. Okay, so let me just grab one of our ones here. So if you're not familiar with the geoboards, if you count the number of pegs that are on the outside ring, you'll know that there are 11 of them. And there's 11 so that there's 100 squares inside. So that's, a lot of times people say, oh, it's a 10 by 10. The 10 by 10 is on the inside. You have 11 by 11 on the outside. And when we're working with students initially, it's really good, especially when they're young. And let's start with kindergarten. Maybe they don't know their shapes yet. They don't know their colors yet. We're practicing colors. We're practicing following instructions. So how do I get a student started? Or I have students that have different needs and we need to give them a little bit more support to get them going. So often one suggestion that I have is when I'm first introducing the board to students, I might put a shape like this on top of the board. Now, I know it's a rectangle, you know it's a rectangle, but maybe they don't. Or maybe you're going to hear students say, hey, that's a rectangle. Great. Well, then we can talk about what is a rectangle. But if they don't, and let's just assume they don't, I might say, could you pick up a red elastic? So if you're going to do these, colored elastics are definitely a benefit for anything. It doesn't matter what age it is, but especially for the little ones. It helps us to be on the same page. It helps us to quickly monitor and formatively assess as we walk around because you know what you're looking for. And if you need colored ones, just go to your local dollar store. There's bags and bags and bags for $1.25 that you can get multiple colors in. So when I have something like this, when I say to students, I want you to grab this shape, and I just hold the shape up. I don't say the shape is a rectangle. I hold it up. If students start saying to me it's a rectangle, we can say, how do you know that? What do you know about a rectangle? So we can unpack that. But the idea behind it is we're going to say, I'd like you to grab a red elastic, and you're going to just put the elastic underneath the pegs that are holding this up. And so they will eventually move it, but just to get it started, the younger ones especially will do is, they'll take it away and then they'll put it on and then they see, oh, it's not really holding there. Oh, it's too short. Measure it some. They do like this, and we set some ground rules about the elastics at every age. And so they can double check it by seeing that it covers it. So it's very easy then for anyone to walk around, for them to say, can you check your shoulder partner? Does your shoulder partner have their rectangle in the same place that you do? And then we can start drawing their attention to it. What do we know about the rectangle? It has a long side, it has a short side. Do they look the same on both sides? So that kind of language as well. So I might say, can you take your cover again for your rectangle? And can you count 1, 2 pegs over and put it down? And this time I'd like you to take your blue elastic and I'd like you to make a rectangle there. And this is very doable with kindergarten. They manage it quite well. And since transformations and that type of work starts very early in grade 2, even in grade 1, we'll talk about that a little bit. It's nice for them to have that experience to do these. So then we can ask them some things for comparative language. Are they the same? Are they different? Well, they look the same in size. They're different in color. That's at math talk. And that's why we're purposely picking different colors so we can have some difference there. So size-wise, they're exactly the same. I might say, how many squares are inside the red rectangle? And by squares, we're saying, here's a square, and here's a square. So remember when we said there's a 10 by 10 inside, that's where you get 100 squares. So how many squares are inside my red rectangle? They can count them 1, 2, 3. And if I'm learning to count, good practice. And then we could ask, does the blue rectangle also have 3? If they're just learning to count, they're going to go back and check it. They're not going to transfer that knowledge over. If children are a little bit older, they're going to say they're exactly the same size, same length, same width. So yeah, they have the same squares, same number of squares inside. All right, so you would do lots of practice like that. I would give them different shapes that they could do the same thing. I'm going to give you an instruction. I'm going to say, you know, how I want, what elastic I want you to put on it. Take your card off and then go. So I have several sizes of cards that I use with students. But eventually I do want to be able to get to the fact where I can say, all right, I'd like you to take, I'll just grab a different one. I'd like you to take your red elastic and I would like you to put your finger on a peg and I'd like you to count 2 over from that peg, and that is the top of your rectangle. That's where you're going to start. So if I'm going to start there, now I want you to, and they're going to count first before they do anything, I want you to count down 3. 1, 2, 3. So when I count down 3, and I make my rectangle, now elastics will dry out. If you have them in a kit and they've been there for a long time, they will dry out. So one of the rules I have with elastics is obviously there's no shooting elastics. So we go through the rules of if you were hit in the eye with an elastic, would that be a good thing or a bad thing? If you were hit in the forehead, if you were hit unknowingly, if somebody came up and snapped an elastic on you. So we go through all those things, how that wouldn't be very comfortable and very nice. And we tell them that if an elastic goes flying across the room because of you, then you won't be working on the geoboard. Now, what will happen though is sometimes when they're old, they'll dry out and they will go flying across the room. When they're making this, all of a sudden, it takes off and flies across the room. And you will hear very quickly, that wasn't me, it broke. Okay, so they're very quick to cover themselves, and that's fair. We say, not a problem. Let's take another red one and let's try it again. And if they don't have one, then we always have extras at the front that we can just walk around and give them. So you're getting the idea of where you're going to go with the beginning of this. So now I might say to them, can you go 2 over and make the same sized rectangle? And this time do it in yellow. So go 2 units over, 2 lines over. We're going to get to these lines in a minute and start making it in yellow. And it has to be the same size. So I'm checking to see whether they do have good spatial sense. A lot of them will take their fingers and count the tops on both of them again, and they'll just double check them. So they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so they just double check. So now we can say, are they both the same? How are they different? And now I might say, what if I took another elastic? Maybe I took a green elastic. I'm going to put my green elastic in between my original red and blue. So I'm just going to say stretch it right out and put it right there. So I might say, is this one the same distance away from the green elastic as this one is? And again, they don't have an issue with that. They'll say yes. And we're going to get to more of that work in just a little bit. And now we're going to take another green elastic, and this time I'm going to put it right here. And again, I'm going to say, so is this one the same distance as the yellow one is from the green line? And then they realize, well, this one's got an extra one in between, so this one isn't. So then I can ask comparative things like, which one is closer to the green, the red or the yellow? Which one is further away from the green? Which one is larger? Which one is smaller? Are they both the same? So it's using that language and comparative, you're practicing colors. All of that's kind of coming at the same time. So using different shapes and coming up with those different possibilities. Okay, I'm just going to take these off. And I'll leave my red one on just for now, just for the ease of time here. And now I might go one step further. We've been practicing different shapes. You could go ahead and show them a triangle. I do have triangles cut out. So now I give them another shape. And I'm not going to put it side by side. I'm actually going to put it down a little bit. So when I'm doing this for the first time, especially with kindergarten students, if I want them to have what I have, then I will have the cards on their table, but I will have a screenshot of exactly what I want. So I will have a screenshot of this. So I'm going to say, can you grab your large square and can you put it onto your geoboard in the same place that it is in mine? So I will model that for them and say, notice in the bottom right hand, this is our right side of my rectangle, I have 1 and 2, and now I'm starting. So just giving them some prompts about what they can think about. And then they're probably already asking you, what color should we make it? And I'm going to say, let's pick a blue this time. So we're going to pick a blue. I'm going to make my square. And again, they can put it right back on top again, and they can check it. Okay, you can do it that way. So when you're even with students that are older and you're dealing with attributes, what are the attributes of a rectangle versus the attributes of a square? Do they both have right angles? Do they have the same length side? Like all of those pieces, I can do that really well with a geoboard, and it's engaging for the kids. It's very hands-on. So now I can say the same thing. I could say, are these the same shape? And doesn't matter how old they are, they're going to tell you, nope, you sure aren't. I'm going to take my green elastic again, and this time I'm going to put it in that middle line. I'm going to put it all the way down the side, so right from the top down to the bottom. I'm going to ask them which one is larger, which one is smaller. I'm going to ask them which one is higher, if this is the base, the bottom, which one's higher, which one's lower. I can ask them, are they the same distance away from the green? And the answer is yes. Just because they're not in the same location sitting side by side hasn't changed the distance they are away. So again, you're getting some of those attributes and things that we want them to work on. So I leave that to you to work out with your students and see what kinds of things you can do. And then as they start becoming familiar with shapes, we're really going to start piling on the different things that we can do with them. All right, we'll see you in section 2.